Welcome on board, chosen one. Let's start where it hurts the most. Not with poetry, not with mystery, with the part they keep replaying at night. They said you were overrated. They said you were slow. They said you talked too much and delivered too little. They said, watch, they'll fall off. They said, give it time. They said, they're not built for pressure. And now, look who's suddenly quiet. Look who's suddenly respectful. Look who's suddenly pretending they always believed in you. Oh, that awkward silence. That's respect showing up late and out of breath. You felt the shift before anyone admitted it. The way people stop joking when you enter, the way sarcasm disappears around you, the way even confident mouths choose softer words now. Nobody announced your rise, nobody rang a bell, but everyone felt it, like a temperature drop, like a storm that already passed and left wreckage behind. They don't clap because clapping would mean admitting they were wrong. You remember how they treated you before. Don't lie to yourself. You remember being spoken over, being underestimated, being treated like a backup plan. You remember how comfortable they were doubting you out loud. They mistook your patience for weakness, your silence for fear, your kindness for permission. Classic mistake. Villains always underestimate the quiet one. You stayed calm while they ran their mouths. You stayed consistent while they chased attention. You kept building while they kept judging. You didn't fight every insult because you were busy setting traps called discipline, focus, and time. They thought you were losing. You were actually letting them expose themselves. And now, look who needs to talk. Look who wants to catch up. Look who suddenly respects your opinion. If this message is landing exactly where it should, press like and subscribe right now. Not as a favor, as a signal, as proof this voice gets stronger when chosen ones stand together. Now let's peel the mask off the enemy. They hate that you didn't collapse. They hate that you didn't beg. They hate that you didn't explain yourself. They really hate that you won without announcing it. Because the only thing more terrifying than power is quiet power. Power that doesn't need approval. Power that doesn't ask permission. Think about it. Respect didn't come when you tried to earn it. It came when you stopped caring who withheld it. The moment you stopped performing, people started watching. The moment you withdrew your energy, they leaned in. The moment you stopped explaining, they started assuming, and most of those assumptions worked in your favor. That's not luck. That's leverage. There was a time you walked into rooms and nobody noticed, a time you spoke and nobody listened, a time you carried vision alone while others laughed. Those moments carved something sharp inside you. They taught you restraint, timing, precision. You learned when to speak and when to smile quietly while someone underestimated you for the last time. Now the respect feels different because it's not admiration, it's caution. People don't respect you because you're loud. They respect you because you're solid, because you don't react, because you don't chase, because you don't need them, because you can walk away without flinching. That kind of self-control rattles people who live off validation. The enemy knows this chapter isn't about ego, it's about consequences. They remember the jokes, the dismissive looks, the moments they thought they were above you, and now they're stuck dealing with a version of you that doesn't seek revenge, doesn't explain, doesn't flex. You just exist at a higher level and let reality do the humiliating. That's the most villainous move of all. You're not angry anymore. You're precise. You're not loud. You're undeniable. You're not proving anything. You're collecting receipts in silence while the universe does the announcing. People gained crazy respect for you because they ran out of excuses not to, because denial stopped working, because your growth cornered them, and honestly, it's about time. This is the aftermath, the phase where enemies smile fake, friends get quieter, and observers suddenly pay attention. You're standing in the result of everything you endured, and the best part? You didn't even have to say, "I told you so." They already know, and good. Now slow down. This is the moment where weak attention drops off and only the serious ones stay. Chosen one, this next part isn't for casual listeners or people scrolling out of boredom. This is for the ones who felt the shift before anyone said a word. The ones who noticed how respect didn't arrive with applause, but with silence, with distance, with people suddenly treating you carefully. If that's you, you already know this isn't random. This respect came late, but it came heavy. So before we go deeper, mark your presence, not for me, for yourself. Drop 777 in the comments if you're locked in. Not because it looks cool, but because you recognize this moment as a turning point. Because you understand that when respect finally arrives, it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a different level of responsibility. This is where we stop talking about if you earned it and start breaking down why it happened and what it changes, step by step. No fluff, no hype, just the mechanics behind how the world flipped on you and why people who once doubted you now move differently. Stay with me. If you're really built like that, you'll feel the pull to hear every word. Now let's get into it. Number 1. When they confused your mercy for fear and paid for the misread. They thought you were easy because you didn't bite. Turns out you were just choosing when to chew. Let's be honest and stop pretending this was some innocent misunderstanding. They didn't just misread you. They sized you up, made assumptions, and got comfortable disrespecting you. You walked in, calm, controlled, and generous, and they decided that meant you were soft. You listened instead of interrupting, and they assumed you had nothing to say. You gave grace, and they treated it like a free pass. That wasn't ignorance. That was arrogance. And arrogance always writes checks it can't cash. You weren't kind because you were weak. You were kind because you were disciplined. There's a difference they never learned to recognize. Weak people are loud, reactive, and desperate to be seen. You were none of that. You were measured. You observed. You let people talk themselves into exposing who they really were. While they were busy flexing ego, you were collecting data. And the enemy hates nothing more than realizing the quiet one was watching the whole time. They thought your patience meant you needed them. That's the funniest part. They assumed your humility was dependency, like your existence required their approval, like you were waiting for permission to take up space. So they talked down to you, tested boundaries, took liberties they would never dare take with someone they feared. They mistook your silence for submission and your restraint for confusion. That miscalculation cost them everything. Here's the part nobody warned them about. Kindness isn't weakness. Kindness is control. It means you can react, but choose not to. It means you can destroy the room, but decide to let it stand. That level of restraint only comes from confidence. You don't need to prove yourself when you already know who you are. And that's why, when you finally shifted, it shook them, because they realized all at once that you were never below them. You were above the noise the entire time. Think back. You remember moments that didn't sit right, the jokes disguised as just playing, the advice you never asked for, the subtle disrespect wrapped in fake concern. You felt it, but you let it slide. Not because you didn't notice, because you were watching patterns. You were asking yourself one question over and over: who deserves access to me when I stop being generous? They answered that question for you? At some point, something inside you went quiet, not broken, focused. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped giving benefit of the doubt to people who never gave it to you. You stopped showing your full hand. And the moment you pulled back, they panicked. Because people only notice your value once you stop giving it away for free. That's when respect started showing up in strange ways. Suddenly, they listened. Suddenly, they checked themselves. Suddenly, your words carried weight. Not because you changed who you were, but because you stopped cushioning who you were for people who didn't deserve softness. You didn't become cruel. You became selective, and selective strength terrifies people who relied on your kindness to feel superior. Let's address the question sitting in your mind right now. Why did it take them so long to respect me? Because respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being undeniable. And you became undeniable the moment you stopped trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. Another question. Did I wait too long? No. Timing matters. If you had hardened earlier, you would have burned bridges without knowing who was worth crossing with you. Your patience filtered people out. It revealed who mistook generosity for entitlement. That's not wasted time. That's intelligence. They now replay past interactions differently. They hear your silence and realize it wasn't emptiness. It was restraint. They remember moments where they pushed too far and feel stupid for it now. Because the version of you standing today isn't asking for respect. It's operating from a place where respect is assumed. That's why the shift feels so dramatic. They didn't watch you climb. They just looked up one day and realized you were already there. Here's the brutal truth. The enemy doesn't hate that you're strong. They hate that you were strong without needing them. They hate that you didn't beg. They hate that you didn't explode. They hate that you let time expose them while you stayed composed. That's the kind of victory that doesn't need revenge. It lets reality do the humiliating. You used to walk into rooms unnoticed. Now you walk in and the energy adjusts. Not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. Because you don't seek approval, because you don't overreact, because you don't explain. That calm confidence is earned. It's the result of being underestimated and choosing growth over bitterness. They mistook your kindness for weakness, and now they're dealing with the consequence. Respect that arrives late but heavy. Respect that isn't spoken but shown. Respect that forces people to move carefully around you. And here's the final gut punch they'll never admit out loud. If they had treated you right from the beginning, they might still have access. But they didn't. They played themselves. You didn't change. You just stopped protecting people from the version of you that knows your worth. That's not revenge. That's evolution. Number 2. The day you stopped performing and the world lost control of you. The moment you went silent wasn't weakness. It was the sound of the leash snapping. There was a very specific moment when everything tilted. Not dramatic, not cinematic, no speech, no goodbye. Just a quiet internal click where something inside you said, enough. Enough explaining, enough proving, enough chasing people who only listened so they could twist your words later. That moment didn't look powerful from the outside, but it was the most dangerous shift you ever made. Because performers are controllable, observers are not. For a long time, you were on stage without realizing it. You replied fast. You clarified intentions. You softened statements. You over-delivered context so nobody could misunderstand you. You tried to be fair, polite, reasonable, and all it did was give the wrong people front row seats to your energy. They weren't confused. They were collecting leverage. Then something broke the spell. Maybe it was betrayal, the kind that doesn't scream but quietly rearranges how you see people. Maybe it was exhaustion, waking up tired of explaining basic respect. Or maybe it was a realization so calm it scared you. You don't owe access to people who only show up to take. You don't owe clarity to people committed to distortion. So you stopped. You didn't announce it. You didn't threaten. You didn't block everyone in a dramatic purge. You just stopped performing, stopped texting first, stopped chasing closure, stopped answering questions that weren't asked in good faith. And that silence rewrote the entire power dynamic. When you stop explaining, people have to sit with their assumptions, and most of them can't handle that. Here's what they never tell you. Silence isn't absence. Silence is pressure. Imagine this, a room where the noise suddenly cuts out. No music, no chatter. Everyone freezes, wondering who turned off the sound. That's what your silence did. It forced people to hear themselves, their insecurity, their entitlement, their fear of losing access. They were used to you filling the space, clarifying, soothing, making things easy. When you stopped, they felt exposed, like a magician whose trick stopped working mid-performance, and panic always follows exposure. You probably wondered at that point, am I being cold? Am I overreacting? No, you were recalibrating. Think of it like this. Imagine carrying a heavy bag for miles because everyone around you casually dropped items into it. You didn't complain, you adjusted. Until one day you set the bag down and realized how light you felt without it. That wasn't cruelty. That was intelligence. You didn't disappear. You withdrew your labor. Big difference. Another question you likely asked yourself was, why did people react so strongly when I stopped doing so little? Because what you thought was little was actually the emotional glue holding everything together. You were the bridge, the buffer, the translator. When you stepped back, systems collapsed, conversations stalled, relationships revealed how one-sided they really were. Imagine this, a machine that's been running smoothly for years. Nobody notices the one quiet gear keeping it aligned. Then that gear stops turning. Suddenly sparks, noise, failure, and everyone finally notices what they took for granted. That was you. The enemy hated this phase the most. Not because you attacked them, because you didn't. You didn't defend yourself either. You let silence do what arguments never could. Silence made them question themselves, made them replay old messages, made them wonder what you knew, made them feel the shift without being able to name it. Silence is terrifying to people who relied on your reactions to feel powerful. They tested you at first, sent bait messages, casual check-ins, fake concern. You noticed the pattern immediately. These weren't attempts to reconnect. These were attempts to regain control, to see if you were still available, still pliable, still willing to explain yourself. You didn't bite, and that's when respect started mutating. Not the loud kind, not praise, something subtler. People paused before speaking to you. They weighed words, they checked tone, they stopped assuming. That's when you knew the shift was permanent. When people start thinking before engaging, power has already changed hands. Imagine this, a chessboard where one player suddenly stops reacting to every move. They don't rush, they don't explain strategy, they just sit back and let the other player overextend. Panic sets in, mistakes multiply, and the silent player hasn't said a word. That's how you moved. Another question creeps in here. Did I become distant? No, you became selective. Distance is avoidance. Selectivity is sovereignty. You didn't shut everyone out. You just stopped letting anyone wander in. You didn't harden. You clarified. And the most unsettling part for them, you seemed calmer than ever, not bitter, not angry, focused, grounded, untouchable. That calm wasn't peace, it was certainty. Certainty scares people who built their confidence on access to you. They started talking about you differently, with caution, with curiosity, sometimes with fake praise, sometimes with quiet resentment, because they could feel it. You weren't playing the same game anymore. You weren't auditioning. You weren't seeking approval. You were moving as if outcomes didn't control you. That's when the universe shifted the spotlight. Opportunities aligned. People noticed. Not because you demanded attention, but because your absence created gravity. Imagine a star collapsing into itself, becoming denser, quieter, more powerful. Suddenly, everything around it starts orbiting differently. That was your silence. This section of your life wasn't about winning. It was about ending dependency, ending the need to be understood by people who never intended to understand you. And once that ended, everything else followed. They lost access. You gained authority. They lost leverage. You gained clarity. They lost control. You gained respect. And that's why this shift changed everything. Because once you stop performing, nobody can tell you who you are anymore. The stage disappears, the audience panics, and you finally step into the role you were never auditioning for in the first place. The strongest one in the room doesn't speak first. And now, so do you. Number 3. The moment you walked away, and everything started breaking. The most dangerous move you made wasn't attacking, it was removing yourself completely. Walking away wasn't weakness, it was strategy. You didn't storm out, you didn't announce your exit, you simply stopped showing up where you were being minimized, and that single decision exposed everything. The moment you removed yourself from the equation, the entire system glitched, because systems built on exploiting your energy cannot survive without it. They genuinely believed you'd fall apart without their scraps of attention, that you needed their reactions, their approval, their presence to stay relevant. That illusion kept them comfortable, so when you disappeared, not physically but energetically, panic followed. Conversations lost direction, dynamics shifted. People who felt powerful around you suddenly felt exposed. Imagine this, a parasite bragging about how weak the host is, only to starve the second the host walks away. That's exactly what happened. You didn't leave to prove a point. You left because the point was already proven. Here's the question you probably asked yourself in silence. Why did things fall apart after I stepped back? Because you were the stabilizer, the quiet glue, the one absorbing chaos so others could feel important. Once you stopped doing that labor, imbalance showed itself immediately. You weren't replaceable, you were foundational. Another question, why did they suddenly start watching me again? Because absence creates gravity. When you stop feeding people access, curiosity replaces comfort. They began replaying old interactions, trying to figure out when they lost control. They didn't miss you emotionally, they missed the advantage. Imagine a spotlight that shuts off mid-show. The audience doesn't applaud, they panic. That was your absence. Not dramatic, but disorienting. You didn't vanish, you went offline where they couldn't reach you. And while they scrambled, you thrived, not loudly, efficiently, you focused inward, you sharpened discipline, you invested energy where it actually multiplied. The universe met you there, not with noise, but with alignment, opportunities, clarity, respect that didn't need explanation. The most humiliating part for them. You didn't come back to flex. You didn't announce success. You let outcomes speak. And now they move differently around you. Carefully, quietly, because they know the truth. You weren't removed from the equation. You were the equation. Number 4. When your absence turned into their regret. They didn't realize your value when you were available. They felt it the second you became unreachable. This is where it finally hit them, not as a thought, as a punch. Your absence didn't create confusion anymore, it created clarity. Without you around to soften the room, to carry the weight, to balance egos, everything felt off. And that's when they realized what you actually were. Not optional, not replaceable, not background noise. You probably noticed it first in behavior, not words. People who used to dismiss you now copy you, your phrases, your timing, your approach. Friends who once talked over you suddenly go quiet when you speak. They don't interrupt anymore. They listen. Carefully. Because imitation is the most honest confession of respect, and silence is what happens when confidence realizes it's outmatched. They didn't level up. They adjusted because you were gone. Here's the question that crept into your mind. Why now? Why did it take my absence? Because presence lets people get comfortable. Absence forces evaluation. Imagine a load-bearing wall removed from a building. Nobody noticed it while it stood there quietly doing its job. Remove it and suddenly cracks appear everywhere. That was you. Structural, invisible until gone. Another truth they're choking on. They didn't just lose you. They lost access. Access to your insight, your patience, your grounding energy. And access is what made them feel important in the first place. Without it, they're exposed to their own limits. Respect arrived when convenience left. Now they watch you differently. Not with casual curiosity, but with calculation. Measuring distance, weighing words, because they know this version of you doesn't linger where value isn't returned. You're not angry. That's what scares them. You're neutral. Neutral people are the hardest to manipulate. Imagine a king who steps off the board and lets the pieces scramble without him. Chaos reveals hierarchy fast. That's what your absence did. It exposed who depended on you to feel tall. This isn't just respect. It's recognition wrapped in regret. They finally see your value because they're living without it. And the cruel part, there's no rewind. Number 5. The moment you realized you never needed their permission. You didn't become confident. You became certain. And certainty makes noise without speaking. Something in you recalibrated, and it shows in everything. Not in the way you brag or posture, but in how you move through space. Your walk slowed down, your voice dropped, your reactions disappeared, not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer auditioning for understanding. You're standing on ground you claimed internally, and the outside world is responding to that shift, whether they like it or not. You probably wondered, why do people treat me differently now when I'm doing less? Because you stopped leaking energy. Imagine a cracked container finally sealed. The contents don't change, but the pressure does. That pressure is what people feel when you enter a room. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You stopped defending yourself the day you realized explanation is a privilege, not a duty. You speak less now, but every word lands. That's not coincidence, that's precision. When someone speaks all the time, their words get discounted. When someone chooses silence, every sentence carries weight. You learned that people committed to misunderstanding, you don't want clarity, they want control. And once you stopped feeding that, the dynamic collapsed. Another question crossed your mind. Am I colder now? No, you're clearer. Coldness is emotional shutdown. Clarity is emotional discipline. You didn't lose empathy, you just stopped extending it to people who used it against you. Your calm unsettles them because it can't be provoked anymore. Imagine this: a mirror that no longer reflects what someone wants to see. They get frustrated, they poke, they test. Nothing changes. That's you now. You don't rise to bait. You don't shrink under pressure. You stay grounded. And grounded people are dangerous because they don't wobble when pushed. What people are reacting to isn't your success, your words, or your silence. It's your self-trust. They sense it. They feel that you've made peace with who you are, and that peace removes leverage. You don't need approval. You don't need agreement. You don't need to be liked. You finally see yourself clearly, and once that happens, everyone else has no choice but to adjust. Number 6. When they tried to edit the past, and you let the receipts burn. They didn't believe in you back then. They're just scared to admit they were wrong now. This is the part that almost makes you laugh. Almost. Now that you've evolved, now that respect shows up without you asking, suddenly the story changes. They always knew you had it. They always supported you. They always saw your potential. Funny how that confidence only appeared after you proved them wrong. You remember the truth, though. Every dismissive tone, every sideways comment, every moment they made you feel like you were too much for caring deeply and not enough for wanting more. They minimized your wins, questioned your pace, and wrapped doubt in jokes so they could deny it later. That wasn't encouragement. That was conditioning. They're not rewriting history for you, they're rewriting it to sleep at night. Here's the question that probably crossed your mind. Why are they doing this now? Because reality cornered them. Imagine someone watching a movie where the side character they ignored becomes the main force by the end. Their only defense is pretending they were on your side all along. It's not support, it's damage control. Another one. Why doesn't this make me angry anymore? Because anger needs confusion. You're clear now. Memory turned into data. Data turned into discernment. You're not bitter. You're informed. There's a difference. Clarity is remembering without flinching. Imagine this. Someone stepping on your foot for years, then apologizing only after you've moved away. The apology doesn't hurt. It just proves why distance was necessary. That's how their revision sounds to you now. Hollow, late, convenient. They want credit for a journey they doubted. They want proximity to a version of you they didn't nurture. And the most unsettling part for them, you don't argue. You don't correct them. You don't expose them. You just remember. And that memory keeps you sharp. It keeps you selective. It keeps you from reopening doors that closed for a reason. You don't need to punish them. Time already did. You moved forward with clarity, not resentment. They can rewrite the story all they want. You're living the truth. Number 7. When the dead start knocking and you don't answer. They didn't come back because they missed you. They came back because they felt you no longer needed them. Here's where it gets eerie. The ghosts show up. Old names, old faces, old connections sliding back into your space like nothing ever happened. No apology, no accountability, just casual messages, familiar tones, friendly energy, as if time erased disrespect, as if absence wiped the slate clean. It didn't. They're not here to reconnect. They're here to confirm something, to see if you're still accessible, still soft, still willing to reopen doors they walked out of when you were inconvenient. Regret wears many disguises, and friendliness is one of the laziest. They don't want you back. They want access back. You might have asked yourself, why now? Why all at once? Because your growth sent a signal. Imagine a house that used to be ignored, suddenly glowing in the dark. Every opportunist remembers the address. Your shine triggered memory, not loyalty, curiosity. Another question. Do I owe them a response? No. Closure is not a group project. You already closed the chapter when you healed without them. Silence isn't cruelty here. It's consistency. Reunions are earned, not owed. Picture this. Someone leaves a garden unattended, then returns during harvest season with a smile. They didn't water it, didn't protect it, didn't believe in it, but they want fruit. That's what these returns are. Late arrivals hoping the door is still unlocked. And here's the sharpest truth. They don't respect the version of you they left behind. They respect the version standing now, the composed one, the respected one, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't need them. They didn't abandon you because you were nothing. They left because they couldn't see who you'd become. You don't need to confront. You don't need to explain. You don't need to reopen wounds to prove growth. Your distance already says everything. Ghosts only haunt places where doors are still open. Yours are closed, and that's why they knock. Number 8. When your growth exposed their comfort with staying small. They don't hate you. They hate what your growth says about their excuses. This is the quiet resentment, the kind they'll never admit out loud. It hides behind forced smiles, backhanded compliments, and fake support that feels just a little off. They clap with stiff hands. They praise you with conditions. They say things like, "must be nice," or "you just got lucky," as if discipline, sacrifice, and consistency fell out of the sky and landed on you by accident. You felt that shift too. Your progress didn't inspire them. It confronted them, and confrontation makes people uncomfortable when they've been avoiding their own potential for years. Your growth became a mirror they didn't ask for. Every step you took forward highlighted how long they'd been standing still. Your success didn't change them. It exposed them. You might have wondered, why does support feel colder now that I'm doing better? Because they liked you when you were manageable, when your dreams didn't threaten their comfort, when your light made them feel generous instead of inadequate. You being small allowed them to feel big without effort. Now that dynamic is gone. Imagine this. Two people start walking together. One stops. The other keeps going. At some point, the distance becomes embarrassing, not because of competition, but because movement tells the truth. That truth is what they resent. They're not mad you grew. They're mad they didn't. Their anger isn't loud, it's subtle, passive, dismissive, a shift in tone, a lack of enthusiasm, because celebrating you would mean admitting they chose stagnation. And that's a harder pill to swallow than jealousy. Here's the clarity you earned. This resentment isn't your responsibility. You didn't betray anyone by evolving. You didn't abandon them. You simply refused to stay small to protect someone else's ego. Your growth is neutral. Their reaction is the confession. Let them feel it. You're not here to shrink so others can stay comfortable. You moved forward because you were supposed to, and deep down, they know it. Number 9. The respect that feels different because it comes from different places. Not all respect is admiration. Some of it is caution, some of it is fear, and you earned all of it. You started noticing it in layers. The way some people stiffen around you now. The way others lean in. Same word, different energy. Respect didn't arrive as one clean emotion. It split. And that split tells you everything. There's the first kind, fear-based respect. The kind that shows up when people realize you're no longer manageable. They can't guilt you, can't rush you, can't provoke you into explaining yourself. They watch what they say now. They test less. Because they learned the hard way that you're not someone to play with anymore. Fear-based respect isn't love. It's the realization that access has consequences. Think of it like this. Imagine someone who used to cut corners around you because you let it slide. Then one day, you stop bending. Suddenly rules matter. Tone matters. Behavior matters. That's not intimidation. That's boundaries finally being enforced. Then there's the second kind, real admiration, quiet, solid, from people who know exactly what it costs to rebuild yourself from the inside out. They don't hype you loudly. They don't copy you. They simply acknowledge the discipline, the patience, the restraint it took to become this version of you. Admiration comes from people who recognize the work, not just the result. You might have asked yourself, which one matters more? Neither compares to the third. The deepest respect didn't come from them at all. It came the moment you stopped betraying yourself to keep peace, when you honored your instincts, when you walked away without needing applause. That self-respect rewired how everyone else responded to you. Once you respect yourself, the world has no choice but to negotiate differently. Imagine a locked vault, no signs, no warnings, just solid steel. People don't bang on it, they don't test it, they accept it. That's you now. Some respect you out of fear, some out of admiration. But the game changed when you respected yourself first. Everything else followed. Number 10. The day you built yourself on bedrock and everything else had to adjust. Self-respect isn't loud. It's structural. Once it's in place, nothing shaky survives around it. This is where the real work paid off. Not when people noticed you, not when respect arrived, but when you stopped betraying yourself just to keep the room calm. You quit apologizing for instincts that kept you alive. You stopped shrinking scars into jokes. You accepted every version of yourself that made it through pressure instead of pretending you were untouched by it. That decision rewired everything. Self-respect became your foundation, not your reward. And foundations don't ask permission from the furniture sitting on them. They hold weight or they don't. Once you embodied that, the world had no option but to adjust its posture around you. You didn't raise your voice, you raised your standards, and gravity did the rest. Here's what they don't say out loud. Your success disrupted their hierarchy. You climbed without their approval. You evolved without their guidance. That terrifies people who rely on rank, timing, or proximity to feel important. Your growth exposed how much of their confidence was borrowed. So they cope the only way they know how. They call it luck, timing, a phase, a coincidence, anything but discipline, anything but consistency, anything but admitting you did the work they avoided when it got uncomfortable. They'd rather insult your path than admit they refuse to walk theirs. Imagine a building that suddenly rises taller than the rest, not flashy, just solid. The shorter ones don't grow overnight. They complain about the skyline. That's what you triggered, not envy, exposure. You might have wondered, Why does my progress irritate people who claim to support me? Because self-respect creates contrast, and contrast reveals complacency. Your evolution isn't aggressive, their reaction is defensive. You didn't take anything from them. You stopped giving yourself away. That's the architecture they can't dismantle, because once someone builds themselves on truth instead of approval, no rumor, no minimization, no rewrite can shake it. You're not standing tall because of luck. You're standing because you finally built something that doesn't bend. Number 11. The signal you emit now, and why most people can't pick it up. You didn't rise above them. You moved onto a frequency they were never equipped to reach. Something about you doesn't translate anymore, and that's not an accident. You're not speaking louder. You're not proving more. You're just operating on a wavelength that exposes who's actually aligned and who was only comfortable when you fit their frame. Some people feel you instantly. Others feel irritated, confused, or threatened. That reaction tells you everything. You've probably noticed it. Certain people lean in without effort. Conversations flow. Mutual respect exists without explanation. Others seem stuck, trying to interact with an older version of you that no longer exists. They keep using outdated rules, old expectations, old hierarchies, and nothing lands. When someone can't tune into you, they call you distant instead of admitting they're out of range. Here's the question you might have asked yourself. Why does it feel lonely even when I'm respected? Because alignment is rarer than admiration. Many people respected you when you were familiar. Very few can stand you now that you're sovereign. Your frequency demands presence, self-awareness, and accountability. That disqualifies anyone still living off conformity and borrowed identity. Imagine a radio locked to static, trying to catch a clean signal. The problem isn't the broadcast. It's the receiver. That's what you've become. Clear, precise, unapologetic. And not everyone can handle clarity. Your frequency doesn't reject people. It filters them. This is where you stop waiting to be understood. You're building your own arena now, not begging for a seat at tables that require you to shrink, not explaining your worth in rooms that thrive on sameness. You don't need mass approval. You need resonance. Those who hear you clearly feel seen. Those who don't feel exposed. And that's fine. Because you're no longer trying to fit into systems that were designed to keep you manageable. You're operating in a space where alignment matters more than acceptance. The signal is live. Only the right ones will tune in. Number 12. When even the noise learned to shut up. Silence isn't empty. Silence is what happens when prediction dies. You noticed it before anyone said it out loud. The critics stopped critiquing. The advisors stopped advising. The people who always had an opinion suddenly had none. Not because they grew wiser, because you became unreadable. They can't track your moves anymore, and nothing humbles control-hungry minds faster than uncertainty. They used to tell you what to do because they thought they understood you. They offered guidance because they believed they were ahead of you. That illusion collapsed the moment you stopped moving in familiar patterns. You stopped reacting on schedule, stopped explaining decisions, stopped telegraphing your next step. And now they're quiet, not out of peace, but out of respect. When people can't predict you, they stop trying to manage you. You might have wondered, why does their silence feel heavier than their words ever did? Because silence means authority has shifted. Imagine a chess coach who suddenly can't read the board. They don't interrupt. They don't comment. They watch. carefully. That's the posture people take around someone they no longer feel above. But here's the next phase, and this one's subtle. As you rise, people will start overestimating you, projecting onto you, turning you into a symbol, a myth, a shortcut to their own meaning. Some will romanticize you, others will fear you. Both are distortions. Being idealized is just another form of being misunderstood. Your job now isn't to correct them, it's to stay grounded, to remember you're a person, not a projection. Respect is external. It fluctuates. It shifts. Identity is internal. That's what keeps you dangerous in the right way. Imagine a mountain people argue about from afar. The mountain doesn't respond. It doesn't adjust. It stays rooted. That's you now, silent, solid, unmovable. Their silence isn't absence, it's acknowledgement. Number 13. When you stepped off the board and the game kept playing without you. The moment respect arrived, you realized it was optional. That's when you won for real. This is the final turn, not the victory lap, the exit. You reached the point where their respect showed up, settled in the room, and for the first time, you didn't reach for it. You noticed it, acknowledged it, then kept moving. That's the shift they didn't expect, because people who still need applause stay controllable. You don't. Needing respect makes you reactive. Outgrowing it makes you lethal. Here's the truth most people never touch. Respect feels good, but it's unstable currency. It rises, it fades, it follows outcomes, not character. You understood that early enough to not build your identity on it. So when it finally came, you didn't slow down, you didn't soften, you didn't settle. You treated it like interest, not income. Imagine a fire that no longer needs wood thrown at it. It burns because it's built right. External praise becomes warmth, not fuel. That's self-sustaining power. Applause is nice. Independence is permanent. You might have asked yourself, why don't I feel finished? Because evolution doesn't stop when people finally see you. That's where complacency traps most. You didn't fall for it. You kept sharpening. And as you do, some people can't follow. Not out of malice, out of mismatch. Imagine shedding old armor mid-battle because it no longer fits. Pieces fall away. You move faster, lighter. That's what's happening now. Not everyone who respected you is meant to walk with you. Some will dissolve quietly. Some will fade with distance. No drama, no speeches, just alignment doing its job. Respect is renewable. It will meet you again at the next level. The right people will still be there. The wrong ones won't survive the pace. You didn't transcend the game by winning it. You transcended it by no longer needing to play. Number 14. The altitude where few can breathe and fewer can follow. Loneliness isn't the cost of rising, it's the proof that you did. This is the part nobody romanticizes correctly. As you rise, the crowd thins. Not because you became cold, because fewer people can relate to your problems now. Your stress isn't about survival anymore. It's about precision, direction, responsibility, and most people never leave the level where chaos feels familiar. You gained admiration, but you lost relatability. People look up to you now, but they can't walk beside you. Conversations feel shorter. Advice feels shallow. Complaints sound repetitive. That gap isn't arrogance. It's altitude. At higher levels, silence replaces small talk. You probably wondered, why does this feel quiet even when I'm respected? Because sovereignty doesn't come with crowds. It comes with space, space to think, space to move without interference, space where every decision carries weight and nobody else can carry it for you. Imagine climbing a mountain. At the base, everyone's loud, advice everywhere, opinions non-stop. Halfway up, people drop off. Near the top, it's just wind and footsteps. That silence isn't empty, it's earned. The higher you go, the fewer echoes you hear because there's no one left to shout. This solitude isn't punishment, it's protection. It keeps your vision clean, it filters noise, it prevents compromise disguised as connection. You're no longer surrounded by people who question your direction because they don't understand it. You're surrounded by space that lets you execute. And yes, some days it feels heavy, not lonely, heavy. Because leadership, growth and independence weigh something, but that weight is strength training, not loss. You didn't lose people. You outgrew the need for constant witnesses. The space you stand in now wasn't gifted. It was paid for with discipline, restraint, and hard choices. You earned the quiet. You earned the distance. You earned the freedom. And freedom at this level is silent by design.